social score, which is said to be like in Black Mirror, where there's a kind of score among citizens and you can sort of rank people.
Men do all the household chores in a marriage. Women live like queens at home.
Those friends who, when they returned to Shanghai, said they were afraid of democracy. Whenever I saw a black military truck or a white police truck, a police officer immediately asked for my passport. In November 2025, Prime Minister Takeshi of Japan publicly said that if China attacked Taiwan, that would constitute a situation threatening Japan's survival. And just then we came to China in the worst political context that could have existed in years between China and Japan. I'm Naka, this is Japatonic, and we're in China, and we're going to talk about certain rumors and things that are said about China and maybe some relations with Japan. We're currently in Shanghai at a famous Buddhist temple. In front is a park, and beneath the park is an Apple store. They say that in China, Winnie the Pooh is completely banned. Because about 10 or 15 years ago, people started comparing Pooh Bear to President Jinping. And since that offended the president, they removed Winnie the Pooh from everywhere. And here we have the ban. I mean, it's a complete myth. The thing about Winnie the Pooh being banned, Winnie the Pooh is just like any other Disney product. What is actually prohibited is making parodies or direct criticism of specific politicians. I mean, can you criticize the government? I imagine there are some limitations, but in everyday life, on social media, criticizing political decisions is allowed. What you can't do is make specific attacks on current politicians. For example, I heard and believed a rumor, but yesterday I learned it was just a myth since Winnie the Pooh is everywhere. The fact is that what Takeshi said isn't just words, it's not just a speech that people don't like and that's it. But the problem is that what she said, the words she used are official protocol words, which opens the possibility for Japan to intervene in military conflicts without being directly attacked. And this really bothered China to the point that a Chinese consul in Osaka on X-Twitter said that he is looking for her to be beheaded. She should be beheaded and prepared, among other things. Consul in Japan, huh? They asked that Takaichi retract her statement, but she didn't. She just said she would be more careful with her words next time. And that's causing a lot of problems for cultural relations between China and Japan. And another thing is that it's said that 500,000 Chinese tourists canceled their vacation trips to Japan because the government told them not to go to Japan. But the fact is that Japan is the #1 vacation tourism destination among all Chinese people. I've always said it, in Japan the majority of tourists and immigrants are Chinese. Here, for example, these are all of them. This is a travel agency and it has Kobe beef, Hokkaido, Kobe, Fuji area, Shirakawa-go, Mount Fuji. I love this because it's meant to be the slam dunk crossing, but they used the wrong photo. This isn't the slam dunk crossing, since it's not the train or the wrong crossing. It lacks that bar, but the idea is to show that. I mean, it's really encouraged, it's really sold, and trips and vacations to Japan are heavily promoted. Let's see, and from what my guide was telling me, in general, Chinese people who have a decent, normal level of education. They don't hate Japan, in fact, they actually like Japanese culture. That surprises me a bit, but it's true. Why do so many Chinese people visit Japan? You have no idea how much Japanese culture is consumed here. Food, anime, it's everywhere in Shanghai. People who are more from rural areas, very elderly or with less education, they might be a bit more influenced by what the government say, because politically they are quite enemies, mostly due to historical reasons, although commercially they've been allies for a long time. Doors here, double doors. Gates, and it's a car parking lot. And that's because all the underground structures by regulation have to be bomb-proof, resistant to bombings, period. Now, about cars. For example, electric cars have green license plates, don't pay taxes, and get free plates. But on the other hand, the ones with blue license plates are gasoline cars, and these do pay a lot of taxes. you have to pay $15,000 just for a blue license plate. So blue license plate cars aren't eco-friendly and basically show you care more about status than the environment. The funny thing is that to fill up an electric tank costs you about $10. And with that, you already have 600 kilometers. You can drive 600 kilometers on $10 in electric cars, so they have really good range. You have all the brands: Audi, Volkswagen, Toyota, Benz, Tesla. It's not just Chinese brands. You have to keep in mind that the Chinese still have the image that imported products are good. So brands like Toyota, for example, are among the most used imported ones. People like to use Toyota because Toyota has its reputation. Yesterday, for example, a friend of mine who has a car owns a Chinese brand car, but part of the car is Toyota, and they sell it as if it's a car with Toyota parts. But I really thought there would be more Chinese cars than imported ones. It's surprising me, really. We're now in an embassy district with embassies from many countries. Here is the Korean embassy. The Japanese embassy is over there by the black military truck and white police vehicle. I agreed to try and stood in front of the embassy. When I lifted my phone, they quickly told me not to film and raised their hand to stop me. A police officer immediately asked for my passport and spoke politely. Well, now it's a bit of a delicate situation, so please know, to protect the people inside, don't film. I hope they don't detain me just for wanting a photo at the Japanese embassy entrance. Besides, I'm Japanese. Here we are in a mall. It's like a building full of everything Japanese, let's say, and it's just packed full of Japanese restaurants. Tonkotsu ramen. I saw a sukiya there, a super popular beef bowl chain from over there, a sushi place packed with people waiting outside. Koko Ichibanya, which is for curry. Here, there's a supermarket with Japanese products. As soon as you enter, everything is labeled in Japanese, in katakana. Not Chinese. Everything is Japanese. Kurikake, komasho, lots and lots of Japanese products. The instant ramen from the Ichiran brand, the most viral ramen in the world. This is just like Japanese supermarkets' prepared food sections. Even here, the label uses Japanese with hiragana in this part. Look at all the motorcycles around here, and they're all electric motorcycles. Many of these electric scooters have blankets attached to them so you can ride and stay covered up and not freeze to death. Everyone says it's super dangerous because since they're all electric and super quiet, you have to be careful not to get run over by a motorcycle because they don't make any noise. Look at all the ones going by and you can't hear anything. They all have electric displays like meters. Today the tour is being given by Yu. He's a native of Shanghai, but he speaks Spanish. I wanted to ask you, do people here usually cook more or do they order more delivery?
Since delivery is cheap and fast here, young people like us always order food at home because it's cost effective. For example, I live alone. If I go shopping, cooking and cleaning up takes a lot of time and costs a lot of money. It's just not worth it.
If you live alone, ordering food is ultimately cheaper than cooking.
Ordering, yes. With just $2 or $3 you can eat well. In Shanghai we also have a culture called mara, so meaning buy, clean and cook. And we men do all the housework for a marriage. The women live like queens at home, sitting on the couch, looking at their phones.
But do they work?
They work too.
But does the partner work?
Yes, we think it's a responsibility for men who do housework. We have to take care of the girls.
But let's see, was it always like that? Or maybe I could think that women are taken care of much more because in terms of population, there are more men than women, right?
Yes, that has changed in the last 3 or 4 decades. Now women have more rights. It wasn't like that before.
Market with meat, fish, everything is pretty good. The place doesn't smell bad at all. Well, it's a bit exposed, but let's see, it's an enclosed place. Ah, eels. They sell some live animals. It looks pretty clean, hygienic. Now, one of the biggest myths about China, which has become very popular in recent years, is the topic of the social score. It's said that, like in Black Mirror, there's some kind of score among citizens where you can sort of rank people. That if you cross a red light, you lose points. If you donate blood, you gain points. And with that, it's easier to get a loan and things like that. That's a complete and absolute lie from the internet. Many people also say that in China you buy a house and it's only yours for 70 years, after which you lose the property. That's also false. It turns out that you can buy your house, it will be your house for 70 years, but after 70 years that license is simply renewed. Houses can be inherited, and what's more, there's no inheritance tax either. However, in theory, all Chinese land belongs to the government. Therefore, if you own a house and they want to build a highway there, the government can come. And most likely, it would be like winning the lottery. If you bought a house for $100,000, the government will offer you $500,000 and you basically have to take it. If not, you'll need to go to court. What's interesting about the stores in this little town is they were all originally houses, but with tourism, and since they look nice, people started adapting them. But look, here you can see a little bit of what the old house is like, and this is an ear massage house. These are the lockers where you can charge batteries. The fact is that most electric scooters use the same type of battery, so it's not like you have your own battery, but you exchange it. And everyone shares it. Most people use a standard battery which everyone shares and keeps charging and swapping among themselves. And on the other hand, it's very interesting because here I see a lot of kanji, I mean symbols that I can recognize, some signs that are around here. It's interesting to see some Chinese, as it's sometimes recognizable to Japanese people or helps them remember how things are written. There's something very interesting that someone from here in Shanghai told me. They said they had classmates, university friends who went to study in other countries, right? The United States, Europe, wherever. And the fact is that they told me those friends, when they came back to Shanghai, said they lived in fear of democracy. And that's because, of course, young people in their early 20s were born and raised in a prosperous China. A China where you don't have to worry about politics because, of course, here there is no right to vote. And therefore, seeing that in democratic countries, people who, according to them, have little education or low intellect were the ones choosing who would govern the country. In other words, power was basically in the hands of people with a low level of education. Whether they were the majority or the minority, that's not the point, but that was what scared them. But look, from what they explained to me, to put it simply, here to be a politician, you need to have an education, a degree, a clean record. In other words, you need a very impressive resume. Then it's a very hierarchical thing, with experience and the tasks that the higher government positions give you. It's like they give you a task, a project, and if you complete it, you earn good points, so to speak. And let's say that at the very top are the 7 members of the leadership who are the 7 biggest heads in all of China. And from those 7, 1 will be the next president. I think the government terms are 5 years, but of course, since Jinping is keeping everyone happy and doing things well, I think he's already on his 3rd term now. I believe he's been in power for 13 years already. Now, as some interesting facts about poverty in China during Mao's era, by the late 70s, 80% of the people lived in the countryside. They didn't have much access to education, and it's said that by the 80s, even 88% of the population was living in extreme poverty. It's estimated that the equivalent amount of money people lived on at that time was about $2 a day in today's terms. But after Mao Zedong died, the next president started to open the borders, trade and all that, looking for international investment and so on. By the 90s, extreme poverty was reduced to 66%, and by 2010, extreme poverty dropped to just 11%. And nowadays, it's said that it reached 0%, which doesn't mean that there is no poverty. There is still a lower class, but it's estimated to be about 40% rounding up, and the middle class is about 50%. From what I saw and what I was told, the middle class is actually pretty good, and the upper class makes up 10%. China has about 1,400,000,000 people, so that 10%, which is the very upper class, is actually more than the total population of Japan. So 140 million Chinese people are very rich. In Shanghai, honestly, you see very few pets. Of course, you also have to see where they take the dogs for a walk, but here in this town, look how cute the dogs are. The place where we are is called Zhujiajiao. This town is beautiful, very touristy, but also very authentic and really beautiful. Honestly, it's like a Chinese Venice. The city of Shanghai honestly felt too modern for me. I don't like cities that are just skyscrapers and shopping malls because I don't feel the authenticity, only in a few very specific places. They say that you're surrounded by skyscrapers and suddenly you turn a corner and see more authentic areas. But still, there are always neighborhoods with houses. Look at the Michi. Look how cute the Michi is. It's nice, I like it because you can walk along the river on your way to the station. You get to see the non-touristy part where people actually live. And honestly, it's really nice to see the residential side too. Beautiful, really nice. This town is very lovely. You can see both the touristy part and the beautiful area with houses. Now, for example, about what I asked regarding drugs in China, well, yes, they've always been forbidden. All kinds of drugs are extremely prohibited. But before the pandemic, for example, you could get them and it wasn't that hard. But around 2018, 2019, there was like a huge crackdown where they would, for example, the police would randomly go to bars or clubs, like nightclubs. And the thing is, the people inside were told, okay, we're going to do a hair drug test. The hair drug test leaves a trace. And I think it lasts for about a year. And basically with that, they pretty much eliminated all drug use, narcotics. What a beautiful view this town has. So nice and close to the station and avenue. What's going on? Why are the trees painted white? It reminds me of Argentina, at least when I was a kid. In Argentina, there were people who painted the trees white up to this height and I never knew what it was for. Please tell me in the comments why the trees are painted white. It can't be to prevent cars from hitting them since there's one in the middle over there. I mean, it's not like they're all facing the street, so why do they paint them? Is it for insects? Could it be that this prevents bugs? To ride the subway, you must have your bags checked by security. And to enter the subway, you also use Alipay, QR code. Now the trip, which took about an hour and a half to get here, the ticket cost about $1.20. It's super cheap because, of course, since it's provided by the government, they make it extremely cheap. The train network is huge, about as big as Tokyo's, and lets you reach any destination. Here, since we're already kind of in the countryside, there are views, but most of it is underground, right? This is a historic warehouse where there's a movie called 800 in which Chinese soldiers defended this place against the Japanese who were invading the area. And the fact is that it's very famous, and this part was preserved because of that hole up there. 6 Chinese soldiers tied grenades to themselves and jumped right here where it was full of Japanese soldiers to blow themselves up. They became heroes, marking those 6 spots where they fell. The movie is called 800 because the story is very interesting. There were actually 400 soldiers, but they said there were 800. So that the Japanese would be more prepared, so they would be a bit more afraid or worried about the number of soldiers there were, but the reality is that there were far fewer. The thing about social media, which is already well known, is that in China, non-Chinese social media platforms are blocked here. An explanation for this ban on foreign social media or websites, and it's not just that China doesn't want foreign social media to work here just because they feel like it. What happens is that other social media platforms actually tried to enter China, but what's the problem? The conditions set by the Chinese government. For example, if a foreign social media platform wants to operate in China, then it has to put its servers in China, because what China doesn't want is for the data, the personal information of its population, to be in databases outside the country where they can't control it. And that's why if people here want to access foreign social media, they have to use a VPN. Cash isn't used here. People don't use cash here. In fact, I only have one bill that I keep as a souvenir, which is a 100 yuan bill with Mao Zedong's face on it. And this is something very rare to see nowadays. All the purchases you want to make have to be with the Alipay app, which for example made me pretty nervous because I couldn't add credit to Alipay. You can't do that. However, You can link an international credit card to Alipay and complete all required identity verification steps. And directly, when you make a purchase, you pay with Alipay directly. It's already linked to your card automatically, and it works. TikTok, which is Chinese, likely has its servers in the United States, while the original Chinese TikTok has servers in China. And the thing is, it's not just the problem of others using it, but it's also about being able to control the population, like I said before. It's not that you can't criticize politics, society, or any of that, but they really want to maintain that kind of social harmony. And speaking of government censorship, for example, here Halloween is celebrated pretty big. People also dress up and all that. But the thing is that after the pandemic, there were people dressed up as doctors with giant syringes or things like that. It was kind of a parody of the pandemic, right? And the fact is that a lot of people got offended because they said you shouldn't joke about that because, of course, COVID started here, right? After that incident during Halloween, no one is allowed to cover their face since those people had their faces covered. As a doctor or whatever, I think they arrested several people who were dressed up as doctors parodying COVID, and after that they banned covering your face. To the point that a friend of mine, for example, who lives here and goes to concerts, on Halloween he was going to a concert of a Kiss cover band. Of course, to do Kiss covers, they kind of have to paint their faces, right? And since they were playing on Halloween, they were told they couldn't. Who? Well, the government officials, because here to play concerts and such. Yeah, I mean, if you charge admission or something like that and play, you have to get a permit from the municipality where you submit your set list, things like that, the style you play. I mean, you have to specify what the concert is going to be about. And since it was a Kiss cover and they had to wear makeup, they were told they could only wear makeup on Halloween. Even after Halloween, there's still a need to register everything planned for a concert. International bands that come to play here often have to provide the playlist, and since they're famous bands, it's easy to find out what the lyrics are about and all that. And there are songs they're not allowed to play. For example, Metallica isn't allowed to play Master of Puppets, or at least they were forbidden from playing it once. Well, but that's all. Shanghai is very nice. What I liked the most was the town we just visited, but let's see the rest. It's a very beautiful city, but honestly, everything feels very artificial. It's a great, comfortable place to live, modern, nice, financial and focused on shopping, but not very touristy. But I didn't really feel much soul in it. Luckily, I have friends here that I meet up with and hang out with, but anyway, it's a very nice city despite everything. See you next time. Greetings to your family, pet and neighbor. Bye.